You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we're investigating a conspiracy theory in FAB Facts.
We're being reunited with friends and family in the Randomiser.
And Stuart Woodhead is here to chat about Gerry's earliest puppet show.
Ooh, we're going back to the beginning in Pod 195.
Zip, 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 of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Did you like that?
Well, I wouldn't say I liked it. It was curious.
That's my backwards. Yeah, okay.
You know, it sounded very convincing.
Okay.
So I was going to try and say your name backwards there, but you are Richard James if we're talking forwards.
Yes, that's true. And you are Jamie Anderson if we're talking forwards.
Or possibly Nosred Nari Madge if we're going the other way. Probably not that. And this is the Gerry Anderson podcast. We've done this before.
We have, I know. We've done this so many times.
Because I can remember saying Nosred Nar before.
Exactly. Yeah, we've done everything at least once by now.
Yeah, because there's just
the trouble.
So many of these podcasts.
That's
anyway,
right.
This is the Gerry Anderson podcast. We'll be doing the same old tat as usual.
Okay. Start on a high.
No. There's always news. There's always new stuff to discover. But it will all be Gerry Anderson themed.
Yeah, just about.
And as well as Richard and I, we're also joined by him over there, Chris Dale, also known as the Randomiser.
He is, yes.
And
that's right.
unusually, he's getting a tattoo today.
What?
I know.
What? Oh, is that what he's doing?
He's being very brave, but it's going directly on his shin, which I believe is a very painful place for a tattoo.
Ouch.
But
what does it say? Cut here? No?
No. Well, we can't see because the tattoo artist's in the way.
Yes.
But he's looking very stoic. I mean, slightly watery eyes, but he's not showing any signs of pain. But anyway, we'll see what that tattoo is later on.
Okay.
And when he's done with it, he'll be doing the randomizer when he chooses a random episode of a random Gerry Anderson series and gives us his amusing, incisive, hilarious and witty commentary.
That's true.
But before then, there are many other things to be done here on the Gerry Anderson podcast, and Richard is going to illustrate them for you now.
Yes, not all of them hilarious and witty, I have to say, but
none of them really.
FAB Facts, for example, we'll
definitely
not.
It. No, it's
that's
definitely
coming
not witty.
up in just a little while. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe because, of course, there's always something new happening in the worlds of the wonderful Gerry Anderson. We've got, I think, is it your interview or is this another one with Ben? I don't know.
This is Ben's
who's
interview with Stuart Woodhead.
There we are. Yes, Stuart Woodhead. Tell us a little bit about Stu Woodhead, who's here to chat about Gerry's earliest show, I think.
Yeah, so Stu's been writing a book on someone called Joy Laurey. It's not a name you might know, but she was an institution in her own right in British puppet stuff. And she was one of the people who started bringing together the original puppets for Twizzle. I think she brought in Christine Glanville and others. And he's written a book called The Girl Who Pulled the Strings. So he'll be here later to talk about the very early days, 1955 to 57, really. And it's very important because it's the origin of all the puppet stuff. So
yeah. Gosh, do you think you'll ever have an interview with someone talking about the early days of the podcast, 2019 to 2020?
You never know. Maybe out there at some point there'll be a Gerry Anderson podcast historian. Or not.
Yeah, or not. So we've got all that and more, of course, because as usual, we've heard from our lovely Podsterons who've been emailing us at podcast@gerryanderson.com, posting on our Facebook group and YouTube and Twitter and so on. So I shall be reading out all those comments a little later on. Another packed podcast.
Well, that's very exciting. I mean, it really is. And then all the news and all that sort of stuff. But really, I think it's nice to start with a sort of amuse-bouche.
Right.
Or an amuse-oreille, perhaps. Would that be the audio version? Yeah. Probably. Anyway, that thing, our little starter, pre-starter, little teaser, is FAB Facts.
Now, time for this week's FAB Facts.
Ah, yes.
Ah, yes.
A fine
It's Fab
vintage
Facts.
of Fab Facts,
Yes,
one
yes.
hopes. I've got a book of Fab Facts. Here's me, this time flicking the very top corner just as a little tease for you.
Oh, go on.
Oh, that's it. Not time to
Yeah,
say Fab
right.
yet. I've got to flick through that book at a slightly slower speed. Richard will shout Fab. That will land us on a page, and I'll give you a Fab Fact from said page, and hopefully you'll enjoy it, and also agree that it is indeed a Fab Fact.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will see indeed. Are you ready with your Fab, Richard?
Born ready.
Commencing flicturation now.
Fab!
Ooh.
Hey?
Gosh. Well, I think you're going to enjoy this one.
Of course I will.
Maybe.
Or at least I'll appear to enjoy it.
Okay, please engage acting mode now. In the 1960s, Century 21 Publishing and City magazines published several popular comics. Titles like TV 21, Lady Penelope, and even something called Joe 90 Top Secret, but that sounds a bit
Oh,
rubbish.
that sounds great.
Terrible, terrible thing. But amongst the lesser-known titles was a short-lived comic named Solo, which was launched in February 1967. As the name might suggest, Solo was named after one of the characters from The Man from U.N.C.L.E.,
Ah.
which was one of the comic strips that it featured. That was
I
obviously
see.
Napoleon Solo.
Yes,
played
by?
on television by the future star of The Protectors,
Of course.
Robert Vaughan. Mostly the other strips were aimed at younger readership than that of TV21. There were lots of Disney strips and animal stories and so on, but notably, no Anderson strips.
Oh, right.
However, issue 16 carried a feature about a plane that had disappeared over the Atlantic, only to land apparently unharmed in New York a few hours later. Over the next few weeks, there were similar stories, along with vague reports about some kind of mysterious force threatening our existence.
Right.
This was the start of a gradual overhaul of the comic, which was fully redesigned with issue 19 in June 1967, as the failing Solo comic was now being used as a promotional tool for the upcoming series, Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons.
Aha!
The cover now proudly declared itself Solo Anti-Mysteron Edition, and sported a TV21-esque tabloid front page reporting on the latest Mysteron attack against present-day Earth.
Very good.
So although it carried several comic strips based on TV shows, as well as the strips named The Mark of the Mysterons, featuring reporter John Marsh investigating all the strange goings-on, the revamped Solo also featured various articles heavily promoting the Mysteron threat. Mm-hmm. You don't really want to be promoting the Mysteron threat, do you? Anyway,
Well, maybe.
photos of real-life disasters were declared the work of the Mysterons, and given such ominous headings as "The storm is gathering,"
Wow.
"This is more than just another warning, it's a call to arms," and "Again we say fight," and
Right.
various letters from readers who suspected that the Mysterons might have taken over local bus drivers or lollipop ladies.
It could happen. Yeah. A slightly more sedate episode, I would think, of Captain Scarlet.
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
but this was part of the fun, wasn't it, of the Mysterons, that
Yes.
you imagine that, you know, these people your teachers, etc.,
yes.
might be taken over. Anyway,
Yeah.
this all started in June of 1967, promoting a series that wouldn't launch until September 67, quite a long time to wait when you were a kid. So, having started as a random assortment of TV and film-related strips with a fairly light-hearted tone, the Solo comic had taken an abrupt shift towards hard paranoia, really, and spent 3.5 months ordering its confused young readers to join the fight against a fictional body-snatching alien menace that was supposedly infiltrating the highest levels of society, when those readers were probably just hoping for some comics about Donald Duck and Goofy.
Yeah.
As the weeks went by, more and more photos of Anderson models and puppets would be featured on the front page, and in issue 23, the comic did finally admit that all this alien carnage was indeed fictional, although it didn't stop them from publishing more than one issue featuring a photo of a real-life human being with the words "assassinated" or "murdered" on the cover.
Crikey.
Wouldn't happen
Really?
now, would it?
No.
Gosh.
Wow.
The final issue of Solo was published 2 weeks before the first broadcast of Captain Scarlet, and the comic was then merged into TV Tornado, which would feature a comic strip based on the genocidal adventures of the Mysterons themselves, similar to TV21's Dalek strip. Today, Solo is mostly remembered as an interesting experiment to promote Captain Scarlet, but because the comic didn't start out that way, there were a few anomalies, such as why were the Mysterons attacking Earth in 1967, considering they wouldn't declare war until 2068? Hopefully, any solo readers who would have been brave enough to stick with the comic until the first broadcast of Scarlet were relieved to eventually discover that the Mysterons weren't actually real, just characters in a television show, although quite a few had probably been scared off long before that point.
Yeah, that's right. Gosh.
What a bizarre experiment, though. I mean, to do it that way, because part of the success of TV21 was the kind of tabloid future newspaper for kids, but kind of written in an adult way. I get that appeal, but to start saying, a current contemporary call to arms and real tragedies happening.
That's extraordinary.
Goodness me, that feels a bit tasteless, doesn't it?
Yes, and I'd never really considered it before. Perhaps the fact that, particularly Captain Scarlet, which as we know was sort of darker in tone, perhaps the fact that that was a puppet series enabled the younger viewer, to maintain a bit of distance, perhaps. But having that human figure on the cover with, murdered or assassinated, that makes it too real, doesn't it? Perhaps, potentially. People often talk about, wouldn't a live-action version of Captain Scarlet be great? Perhaps it would, but perhaps not for kids.
Yeah.
Too dark?
I think in the early screenings of the first couple of episodes, they were really worried that the Mysterons were too terrifying anyway. So to bring it into the real world in that way, on the one hand, fun to joke that your French teacher was a Mysteron, ha 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 ha.
Yes,
but then the real world angle.
I think they'd probably fall foul of a few regulations these days.
I think. Can you imagine what Mary Whitehouse would have had to say about that?
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, slightly before her time, wasn't it? That's right, but 10 years later.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I mean, but if it had happened... Anyway, a fascinating marketing idea, and they were very good at introducing TV shows and kind of getting the audience warmed up for them, so very cool in a way. Keith Shackleton and the team behind the publishing side, Alan Fennell and those guys were doing amazing work, but I feel like Solo was a bit of a miss in that respect.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Podsterons, did you read the original Solo comic? Have you got copies now? What do you think? We'd love to hear your thoughts. podcast@gerryanderson.com, or if you're watching the FAB Facts video, comment below the video, and we may respond to your comments and questions next week.
Yeah.
But I think on that slightly eerie, uncomfortable, and just wrong note, let's bring this one to a close. That's the end of this week's Solo Fact!
Yes! There you go. The irony of it being a solo fact, and we both said solo at the same time, which makes it a duo.
A duo fact. Yes.
Yeah, there we are. Anyway, no, that's very, very interesting. Remember that you're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast, which means that right now you could subscribe to us on whichever channel you're listening to us on whichever platform you get your podcasts. You could leave us a nice rating and a review. 5 stars would be great, of course, to let other people know how we're doing. And why not copy the link to all your socials so your friends can listen too? We've got a bit of an email post bag. People have been emailing this week to podcast@gerryanderson.com. For example, Ian Plowman again says, Hi, Rich and Jamie. I hope you're both doing well. I just thought that you would like this little snippet that I found recently. Ian says it's to do with the Terrorhawk's 10 codes. One of the writers or creators must have been a 2000 AD comic fan. I found this in Prog 232, dated the 3rd of October, 81. There's a strip called The Ace Trucking Company, following the misadventures of said company. And of course, as truckers, they use the 10 codes on their CB radios. In this issue, they produced a small booklet that you could cut out and keep with the 10 codes they used. Not exactly the same, he says, although one of them is 1020. So the idea is definitely there.
Interesting.
All right. Yeah.
Could be coincidence, though.
Could be. Enrique says, International Rescue. Now this is going back to the idea a couple of pods ago about real-life locations featuring in Thunderbird rescues. International Rescue, says Enrique, is required to make an appearance at Hollywood's most famous event, the Oscars, coming up shortly, I think. While there, the boys make time on vacation to see the sights, but are rudely taken aback to their main purpose, saving lives, when the big one strikes, in other words, an earthquake, saving the lives and buildings of Los Angelinos, I suppose. International Rescue discovers that a new evil villain is behind it all. The boys manage to locate her secret hideout underneath one of Disneyland's greatest attractions and defeat this foe without anyone becoming the wiser. And that's from Enrique.
Nice.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite like the idea of it, no one really ever knowing exactly what happened. That's quite interesting.
Doing it all clandestine.
That's right.
Like
That's right.
That was fun.
That's the word. That's exactly the word. Tamara Ravencroft got in touch to say, hi, you asked us to forward ideas to you about where some Thunderbirds adventures could take place. So I've done some ideas. Plus I forwarded some show story ideas for Thunderbirds as well as Captain Scarlet. Enjoy! There are a few, these are a few of the many ideas and titles I've amassed over the years since I was a kid, watching Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet as a kid here in Canada back in the 60s and 70s. So here's a few episode titles and synopses for you. Episode 1 for Thunderbirds, episode title, Hawks of War, Doves of Peace, Part 1 and 2, which is a crossover of Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds set on Mars, which sounds rather interesting. Another Thunderbird episode could be called Shatter Shock, which features a dimensional rift outside Moscow. And finally, a Captain Scarlet episode title, Breaking the Glass Ceiling, which sees Captain Magenta looking to retire and so mentoring a young transgender woman to take his place. Now, that set me thinking, what happens, do we know, Jamie, when Spectrum agents retire? Is that ever broached?
I don't think it is. I mean, I imagine they go to a sort of prisoner-like location.
Oh, you think?
They move to Port Merion, essentially.
Yes, yes, nice.
Yes, I don't know. A retired Spectrum agent could be quite an interesting angle, couldn't it?
It is an idea, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So do let us know your thoughts on anything Gerry Anderson shaped, whether that be a review of your favourite episode, a memory of you growing up as a kid and watching Gerry Anderson shows, or even your thoughts and comments about where various Gerry Anderson shows could go next.
Yes.
Captain Scarlet retiring. I like that idea.
Or even what you thought of
podcast.
Donald Pleasance. He was Gerry Anderson shaped.
That's very true, he was. You're right. Till he got that dreadful scar down his eye.
Sorry.
But yes, send them into podcast@gerryanderson.com, and if you're lucky, I'll read them out next time.
Very good. Yeah, sorry for my terrible Donald Pleasance comment. I interrupted your flow there. I feel terrible.
There's also, is it Gary Waldhorn, I think his name is? Is that right?
I don't
From
know.
The Vicar of Dibley. I think he died last year or the year before. Very Gerry Anderson shaped.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah.
Yes, David
Yeah,
thingy was his character, wasn't it?
Ah, that's right.
In
Yes.
The Vicar of Dibley. Anyway, yes.
Anyway.
Enough of that. I want to bring you some Gerry Anderson news. Can I do that?
Oh, yes, please. It's the most exciting part of the podcast.
Except for the randomizer. And FAB Facts. And the Podsteron messages. And the intro.
And there is that, yeah.
But other than that, yes. Here's the most exciting bit after all those things. It's hang on, because we're training Podsterons for the live version.
Ah, right, okay.
Podsterons,
So,
you ready to go with us this time?
I think we need a bit of a diction exercise. Peter
really?
Piper, Peter Piper, Peter Piper, Peter Piper, Peter Piper. Right,
I can't do
we're
that.
ready. We're warmed up
Okay.
now. Off we go.
Here we go then, Podsterons, join in. Wherever you are, shout it nice and loud, even if you're in a library. Here we go. It's this week's Gerry Anderson News.
Very good. Very good.
I heard
fine
that
voice.
from here. Excellent work. Thank you for joining
Where are
me.
you? You're over in the biography section, aren't you? Yes, you heard me. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm over in the natural history section and I could barely hear it.
Oh, well, that is quite a way away. Lots of very big, thick books between you and them installations.
that's true.
Anyway, look, it is some Gerry Anderson news, so let's begin with this. So let's start with 3 new T-shirts. Well, we've got another 3 designs. It looks like 4.
Oh, yes.
It's 4 T-shirts, would you believe? 4 Thunderbirds T-shirt designs. Brand new kind of badge designs by Marcus Stamps. They're very different. They are rather lovely. Just head over to shop.gerryanderson.com and you'll find them in the news section.
I can't wait.
Normally I leave YouTube till last, but I'm going to put it up front today. Mm-hmm. Have you seen our latest Tech Talk compilations? You may have missed the Tech Talks the first time round. They're now going out as compilations. We've already had UFO, and now we've got Terrorhawks that's been released on the Saturday just gone. Hop over to the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV, and enjoy it there. If you're in the US and you've been hanging around waiting to get the Moonbase Alpha Technical Operations Manual but didn't want to ship it over from the UK because shipping costs and shipping times are long, I understand that. Well, I've got good news for you. Now over at Amazon.com, you can get the Moonbase Alpha Technical Operations Manual shipped from the US to you, wherever you are in North America, much more cheaply and much quicker than if it was coming from the UK. So if you've been hanging on, now is a great time to get it. If you're looking at books, well, Stingray Monster from the Deep is out now. The hardback version is shipping currently, and the audio version will be in the next week or two, so you can grab that. Now, have you heard rumblings, Podsteron, about an app? Yes, an app. In fact, it's called Anderapp. The Anderapp is now live on iTunes, or no, did they say iTunes? I've just taken myself back 5 years. On the App Store anyway, and on the Google Play Store, I believe it's called. You can get it for iPhone and Android. It basically brings together everything Anderson all in one place. So you've got the store there, obviously, all the podcasts you can ever listen to, articles you can read, events you can go to, all that kind of stuff is all there inside one app with special offers and various other things. And new functionality coming over the next couple of months. We'll be doing some very, very cool stuff with it. So please do go and download that, have a play, and let us know what you think. I'm very pleased about it.
Oh, that sounds great.
Now, finally, I know I keep reminding you, but it is a good time to talk about the documentary and the concert. If you were hoping to go to the Electric in Birmingham for our screening with John Culshaw hosting a Q&A, I'm afraid that is now sold out. The preview at the BFI, which is the world premiere of Gerry Anderson, A Life Uncharted, is selling fast, but is available now. If you want to buy tickets, you can go to ander.sn/BFI. That's andr.sn/BFI, and you'll be able to book your tickets there. And also, of course, the concert. Goodness me, that's coming up in like 5 weeks' time. It's very, very soon.
Yes, that's so exciting.
Tickets are selling fast. I would hate for you to miss out. Lots of you from overseas have asked if we'll be recording it. We're working on that, and we'll do our best to make sure as many people get to listen to it either on the night or afterwards. But there's nothing quite like a live music event. If you can manage to get there, then we would love to see you there. So please do join us. Go to bmusic.co.uk if you would like to get some tickets. Oh, I think that's probably about it. That's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And yes, more good joining in. I think Podsteron, you need to do a bit of work on that little outro bit, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there.
Right. Yeah, okay. Well, I look forward to hearing it on April the 16th, live.
Can't wait for that. It's going to be great fun.
Absolutely. From the Podsterons themselves. Talking of whom...
Oh, yes.
Well, I've been visiting
the
Facebook group. No, nothing terrible. Chris Turner has posted there, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. Hi, Podsterons. In pod 193. Oh, here we go. Richard mentioned that he'd been watching The Chase, and one of the questions was about the 5 Tracy brothers being named after the Gemini astronauts. Sorry to be a bit geeky about this, but the US manned space project was Mercury, not Gemini. Yes.
I mean, it's true.
Yes, Chris. So yes, I know it's true. I apologised last week.
You're going to regret that for the rest of your life.
I know. Ed Tipton says, am I the only person who always thought that the opening of Captain Scarlet sounds like he gets caught in a gunfight with a cat?
You're right. Naughty kitty.
CJ List responded, no, that's his own cat. He's been trying to tempt it out of that alleyway for weeks, but each time he does, someone opens fire on them. It could be true.
Here's an interesting question for you. What would... this isn't a joke, this is a genuine question.
Yes.
What would Captain Scarlet's cat be called?
That's not a joke, it's a genuine question. Do you mean like you know the answer?
No, as in I'd love your thoughts.
I don't know, Tibbles?
Tibbles?
I don't know. Well, okay.
Cat.
All right.
Cat Pain Scarlet?
Cat Tin. You could just be Cat Tin, couldn't it? Cat Tin Scarlet.
Cat Tin Scarlet?
Doesn't really work.
Cat Tim Scarlet? Anyway, I'm sorry, I wish I never started this now.
No, that's fine. No, quite. Again, I asked what themes were people looking forward to most hearing at the Standby for Action concert in April. Martin Smiggy Smith says, just booked 2 VIP tickets for me and a Facebook friend who'll be coming over from the Netherlands for the event, so it should be fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin says it'll be my first gig in a few years. I'm used to going to a gig weekly, but usually the more metal kind, but really can't wait for this. Captain Scarlet and Terrorhawks will be among my favourite listens of the night, I'm guessing. Jonathan Bell wonders which is the furthest country that someone will be coming from for the concert. Well, we've got the Netherlands there already.
Yeah, let us know if you're coming from further afield. We'd love to hear and congratulate you for making such a trek.
That's right. Trevor Knight says, I'm looking forward to this so much. I love all the Anderson themes, but themes from Thunderbirds, UFO and Space 1999 and, sorry Jamie, Joe 90 have always been favourites.
You need not apologise because the Joe 90 theme is good. It's the best thing about Joe 90.
Yeah, that's right. He says, plus Terrorhawks and the songs I Wish I Was a Spaceman and Aquamarina, I'm hoping that we might also hear the fantastic theme from Into Infinity or The Day After Tomorrow, and the Fire Flash Landing and Sidewinder incidental
all right,
music.
You don't want much, do you? Bear in mind we've got to fit this all into a couple of hours.
True. That's right.
I will say we are only having we've got every theme for every show from the named composers on the list for shows which made it to air. So you will not get Into Infinity, you won't get The Investigator.
Okay.
You won't get Space Police, but you will get Space Precinct.
Sure.
And you won't get Dick Spanner. So
okay.
But I think those are our only losses in the whole thing.
Yeah, very good.
Arranging Dick Spanner for orchestra. I can't really imagine that working.
No, that's a shame.
But everything else is there. It's going to be a hell of a night.
Great. Hannah says, well, to tell you the truth, Richard, I'm just looking forward to the whole thing. Thunderbirds, though, does have great music, but so do the others. Roger Smith says, my all-time favourite is Stingray, the opening theme. Never been better for getting the heart racing. Rebecca Andrews, I love all the scores, but for me, I'm looking forward to hearing Terrorhawks, UFO, and the Big Three. What would that be?
Well, it could be Thunderbirds,
Captain Scarlet.
Scarlet and Space, or Thunderbirds, Space and UFO.
Yeah, who knows? Ian Allen, I'm sorry, Richard. This question is hard to answer. All of it. Miles Parrish says, I was so pleased to hear Jamie say that they're looking into recording Stand By for Action. Were it not for these unprecedented times, I would 100% have got on a plane from Australia, especially for it. Also, my partner's family live in Southport and I haven't met them yet, COVID again, so I guess that would also have been a good reason to come up. Yeah, concert first, family second.
Absolutely. That's the way to get in with the in-laws saying, well, I was coming over for this concert anyway, so I thought I might as well see you.
Yeah, that's right. Just a couple more. Hello, Podsteron, says Hugh Porter. I have just created a Spotify playlist, which is just all Gerry Anderson themes inspired by the concert and for the people who can't go or might be stuck in lockdown. I thought this would be a great way to listen to all the Gerry Anderson themes in one place. If you feel like I'm missing anything, please let me know. To start listening, just copy the link that he posted on the Facebook group and add it to any internet browser. That's a nice thing to do, isn't it, from Hugh Porter?
So very kind.
Pretend you're there, yeah. And finally, well, Dean Harrison says, a couple of weeks back, Jamie mentioned on the podcast that he probably needed a more Anderson version of the word plethora. So Dean suggests a wide spectrum.
Ooh!
That's good, isn't it? Isn't that good?
Lovely. Very nicely done. Yeah.
So thank you, Dean, for that. Now, it's about that time, isn't it? I'm just looking at my watch now. I've just done a Facebook posts from our various Podsterons, and one of them is Tom Hodden, of course. So I guess it's time for Tom Hodden's Quick Fire 5!
Again?
Here we go. It happens every week, Jamie. Now, this is a fighting contest again, so I'm going to ask you who would win out of these in a fight between Twizzle and Torchy. Surely a battle of the ages.
Oh dear. I mean, I hope they both end up doing each other in, to be honest. Twizzle's arms must be useful for something, so Twizzle.
Yes, fair enough. Who would win in a drinking contest between Freeman and Parker?
Ooh, Parker, surely.
What about a staring contest between Captain Blue and Straker?
Straker. Straker.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
Who would win in a battle of wits between Zelda and the Hood?
Zelda.
Oh, do you think?
She'd deck the Hood every time, yeah, totally.
And finally, who would win a beauty contest between Mitch and Oink?
Oh, come on. Mitch, I guess, just.
Yeah, just about. There we go. Thanks once again to Tom Hodden for this week's Quick Fire 5.
Thanks so much, Tom. I really do appreciate it. Moving swiftly on from that brief appreciation.
Oh, yes.
Shall we have an interview?
Oh, have you got one?
Yes, I have. Well, I don't. Ben Page has one. He's been chatting to Stu Woodhead. Now, Richard, we've already mentioned her name earlier on, Joy Laurey, a name which you may not have been familiar with previously.
No.
But Joy Laurey was an institution in British puppet theatre and created several notable characters for the BBC's Whirligig, and significantly for listeners of this podcast, the original Twizzle puppet. Stu Woodhead is the world's leading Joy Laurey archivist, historian and now author, and his book on Joy, entitled The Girl Who Pulled the Strings, is now available in the Gerry Anderson store. It's a short and sweet one this week. Here's Ben's interview, one of one in terms of parts, with Stu Woodhead.
I'm Ben Page with the Gerry Anderson podcast, and I'm here with Stu Woodhead. Hi, Stu. How's it going?
Hello. I'm great. Thanks. Yourself?
Oh, doing awesome. So I can see plainly that people who are listening to this podcast will probably know you from your recent book. Tell me about your book.
My book's titled Joy Laurey, The Girl Who Pulled the Strings, and it's about the story of Joy Laurey and the famous puppet Mr. Turnip.
Yeah. And that's what's the connection to the worlds of Gerry Anderson there, Stu?
Joy was actually at the very beginning of Gerry Anderson's journey, and she showed Gerry how to manipulate puppets, and she actually created the first puppet Twizzle for the show Twizzle.
Right, yeah. So from the very beginning. Now we're in our offices here recording remotely this time, but I can see around you you're an enthusiastic man about puppetry.
I've got one or two, yeah.
Your office is just filled with marionettes and photos of puppets and just all different kinds. How did you get so into puppetry?
I think it's growing up with things like Rainbow, Thunderbirds themselves, watching all that kind of thing as a kid, but not realizing the impact it had until you become an adult. Even down to the toys like Boglins and things like that. You don't realize it's a puppet as a child. You just think it is a toy.
Yeah.
You're actually manipulating a puppet from a very early stage.
So did you have like a childhood favorite puppet? When did you first, kind of make that connection between what you were seeing on TV and the actual like physical play?
I think it is just from the toys, having the toys as a kid, and then realizing that you can actually manipulate and make things up with them, stories, play with your friends. I went to a park across the road from where I lived, and we all took a Boglins. So that was the first time I kind of realized I liked it enough.
Yeah. For those who don't remember, what were the Boglins? They're like the little latex kind of monster looking.
Yeah, little garish little bog monsters, just hand puppets, moving eyes. So you're quite gross, really.
Yeah. Very, very fun though. I love a good Boglin.
Yeah. There's been a bit of a resurgence with them as well. You can get the new versions now.
Yeah. So when did you first discover Thunderbirds and the Super Marionation puppets? Was that part of your experience growing up as well, or?
Yeah, it was actually on Blue Peter. When they made the famous Tracy Island with Anthea Turner. It was actually around that time. Show my age a bit there, but yeah.
Yeah. So when they were being repeated on BBC.
Yeah. Back in the 90s.
Gotcha. Yeah. And which one did you see first? Do you remember? Was it Thunderbirds or is there a particular one?
I think it was Captain Scarlet, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Captain Scarlet. It's a little bit darker than the Thunderbird stories.
Yeah. Very, very dark and strange, different. Did you was that a favorite of yours because of the darkness of it, or?
Yeah, I think I just liked the darker stories that went through it, and a little bit more scary, I think.
Yeah. So that was, how old would you have been when you first encountered that?
9, 10, maybe something around there.
Yeah. So you weren't tiny enough to be scarred by it.
Oh, no, definitely not.
I'm
not phased easily on that kind of thing.
Yeah, great. So how did you first discover Joy Laurey and Mr. Turnip? How did you first encounter that?
I've collected Pelham puppets for the last 20 years. I managed to get hold of a Mr. Turnip Pelham puppet. Mm-hmm. And from then it was kind of looking into the history of that puppet, where it came from, because on the box there's Joy's name, Joy Laurey. And the more I looked into it, the more I kind of liked the background. And then I was able to actually get one of the puppets that was on TV back in the 50s, which is behind me, just that one there, Mimi Mellon.
Okay,
I thought that was kind of the closest I'd get to having anything from Joy until a lot of her stuff went to auction.
What kind of stuff did you find at the auction? Was it, what's the story? It
was all like professional belongings. So it's programs, flyers, books. I've got nearly all of her artwork for all the Mr. Turnip stories that were written, comic strips. And since then, I've managed to collect quite a few of her professional puppets as well that she used on stage. Now,
do you have a background in kind of, archival keeping? Because you've kind of become the Joy Laurey authority. You're the historian.
I don't know where that came from. I just had that much stuff that I felt obliged to be able to put it out there so other people can see it. Yeah. It's not fair to keep it just locked away in a file. It's nice to be able to start putting it online so other people can see.
Yeah.
So it kind of just went from there. It just spiraled, really.
That's very generous of you not to just keep it, under lock and key.
It's too much work, too much hard work that she's put in there to be able to just keep it to myself. It belongs to everybody, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So from collecting, finding the Pelham puppets and building your collection there, to learning about Joy, to owning a collection of, basically the Joy Laurey Archive, right?
Right.
At what point did you say, I think there's a book in this?
When I first started to look through all the documents, it had been stored badly for years. So I was going through and I was just documenting what was there. And then I realized that there was probably enough to start a book. So I just started putting everything in kind of date order and then by chapter. And I thought, yeah, I can do this. And it was during the first lockdown as well. So I was sat in the garden, 10 o'clock, glass of wine, just tapping away, getting something written down. Never written a book before, but yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Uh-huh. Do you have a background in writing, or was this kind of an experiment for you?
No, none at all. None at all. If someone was to say to me you'd write a book later, I'd be like, wouldn't believe them. I've had good support. That's been good.
That's great. Yeah. It sounds like it kind of chose you as much as you chose it.
No, I agree, actually. I think it was just there for me to do something with, and I just felt the need to do it.
Yeah.
But it's been an exciting journey.
Why is it important for people to remember Joy and the puppetry that she created? What is it about her that stands out?
Everything she did was to please other people, to please children. She was always helping people. She's just such a nice person, but she's in the puppetry world, because it's quite a long way back, she's kind of forgotten. So I think it's bringing her back and her work back for other people to see how good she was at the work she did and how much she influenced people of the future, just like Gerry Anderson. She was there at the beginning. You can't say that she didn't do something in television when she did. So it's nice for other people to realize that.
Yeah. So was her work mostly live performance? Was that her primary medium?
Yeah, it was. She performed on stage from an early age, then went into TV with Mr. Turnip in 1950. But the whole career was marionettes, glove puppets, that kind of thing on stage.
And when you say glove puppets, for people who aren't familiar, is that like Muppet hand puppet, or is that the kind of like describe what a glove
head kind of thing? Yeah. Your hand inside a piece of fabric with a head that you can nod about, that kind of thing. There's probably a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic kind of description.
Yeah. So not quite like the puppets of Terrahawks, where it's a hand doing the mouth.
No, not quite.
Yeah, more of a hand on the first two fingers of the hand, and then kind of exactly. A thumb, and then two other fingers.
Yeah.
So what was her kind of like major material? What kind of stuff was she building puppets out of? Just anything, or?
She used lots of materials. She carved heads out of wood from scratch. She used paper mache, clay, pretty much anything, depending on what kind of time scale she had. She could do a couple at the same time. If they was carved out of wood, she'd work on maybe 6 puppets at a time, just because it was easy with the materials and things. But she'd make them out of pretty much anything, really.
And when she started working in television, the early 50s, what was the transition process like? Did she just kind of take the same puppets and then stick them in front of a camera, or was there a change in her process as she learned this new medium?
I think the basics were the same. It was just the concept given to her by Michael Westmore of the BBC. And she created the puppet, but then the puppet kind of had its own personality. So he kind of came alive on his own. And she treated Mr. Turnip as he was a child to her. So she just carried on doing what she was doing, but it was just on screen. There's no difference to her, really, I don't think.
Yeah. So for people like me, I grew up in the US, so I don't have as much background. Was Mr. Turnip a character that she created, or was that created by the BBC and then brought to life by her?
Yeah, the idea was given to her of a character, and she went away and created it from scratch and gave the BBC what she'd created, and they just went with that. So yeah, it was her personality was put across into Mr. Turnip, and then he just became famous on his own.
Yeah. And was she the voice as well for her characters?
No, there's a well-known voice actor, Peter Hawkins. He did the voice for Bill and Ben, Mr. Turnip, and quite a few others. So a lot of people will realise when you look him up that you'd recognise his voice from a certain programme.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of voices.
Yeah.
Quite squeaky for Mr. Turnip.
So tell me a little bit about like what an episode of Mr. Turnip would be like for those of us who haven't seen it. Can we catch it on YouTube, or is it lost to history?
There's not one clip available. It wasn't recorded. There's the odd clip of sound, a sound clip, but there's no visual record of it. I've got a few of the actual scripts, so you can read through the scripts and see. It was just quite slapstick, and then different puppeteers, magic tricks, music, that kind of thing. But unfortunately, there isn't at the minute any clips available.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Doctor Who and a lot of early television programming where there's just either no recording of it or the recordings are lost. And
no, exactly. For Doctor Who, there's so many fans out there that are hunting for them, but because there's no clips or anything for Whirligig, the program that was with Mr. Turnip, I think people just don't know to look. So they might well have an episode that they've recorded from a telesnap type thing, but it's just not available for anyone else to view.
Well, hopefully when this goes out, there'll be someone who who has it and didn't know what they had, and they'll hear it and be like, oh, this is the thing.
That would be pretty amazing, yeah.
Yeah. You never know. Things turn up all the time. See what I did there? Turn up. That's okay.
We won't mention that bit.
Moving right along. So moving into like working with Gerry Anderson, how did she first encounter Gerry and that team?
From what I understand, Gerry put the feelers out for a puppeteer to be able to show him what he could do after Roberta Lee said that she wanted it in puppet form. From what I understand, I know that Gerry wasn't too keen on working with a puppet straight away. And Joy, being well known at the time and working for the BBC, Mr. Turnip, she was chosen as the person to chat with and create the actual Twizzle puppets for the show.
Most of the time when we talk about the early days, we talk a lot about Christine Glanville, who was the puppeteer, obviously, who did most of the puppetry work and went on to work with Gerry, for most of his career. Was Christine and Joy, were they connected in the puppetry community?
They actually worked together. Christine actually worked with Joy, and they went across to Twizzle together. And then once Twizzle had done its episodes, Christine actually decided to stay on and work with Gerry, and Joy went back to TV.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, she had quite a nice long career with Gerry after Twizzle.
Yeah, they worked together almost until Christine's death with Space Precinct in the 90s. So what was that process? Is there any record of what Joy thought of, this series that she was doing, this kind of up and coming film company?
She just thought it was something big. She'd written to Christine and put, I think it's something big. She knew that Gerry had a head on him that was going to go far. I think she enjoyed being there at the beginning. And that's probably why Christine stayed on, because she knew from that very first time that something big was going to happen further on the line.
Why do you think Joy decided to move on, not stay with the production?
I think it's because of Mr. Turnip. She enjoyed working with that puppet so much. She knew him. She created him. She wanted to go back and continue with Mr. Turnip, which she did. She did for many years. Even after the BBC, she was performing with him. She'd take him to seaside shows and things to show all the children at festivals and things.
So did she kind of own the copyright then to be able to do whatever she wanted with Mr. Turnip as a character, or how did that?
There was some sort of agreement where Joy could exploit Mr. Turnip, as it says in the contract. So she was able to just do what she wanted pretty much, and they just got a cut of anything, any profit.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine when you have ownership of a character like Mr. Turnip to put that aside and then go work, with another company. So I can definitely understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He stayed with her quite close to the end of her life. She treasured him out of everything else she had. It was him that stayed with her.
Now, Mr. Turnip is not what you would call a terribly realistic puppet. How would you describe him?
Close up to the original, he would be pretty basic.
Uh-huh.
I've actually recreated my own.
Do you have it handy?
I do.
There he is.
I don't know if you can see from there.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Turnip.
Pelham Puppets did a nice version, more simple version.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
which is a little bit strange. But if you grew up with things like Munch Bunch, Poddington Peas, that kind of thing, I think it's just that talking vegetable that captures your your imagination.
Yeah, and it's an abstraction, right? It's reduced to kind of the basic elements, and then your imagination kind of does the rest.
Exactly.
The imagination and the
original
puppeteer.
The original one is still about. He's still doing quite well somewhere.
Oh, good. Good for him.
I'd like to get him myself one day, but we'll see.
All right. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, please do.
Gerry went in this direction of like heading increasingly towards realism, right? That was kind of his whole shtick, was like, we're going to take these puppets. By the time you get to something like Captain Scarlet, where it's dark and realistic, the puppets are practically, the proportions are all right.
Yeah.
What do you think Joy would have made of that, transition? Because some puppeteers were not keen on that idea at all.
I think it was mixed, but I think the fact that puppetry was still going and still being performed and on TV, I think she liked that side of it. The tastes of the 50s with Mr. Turnip would have changed dramatically by the time you get to Captain Scarlet. So I think as a taste as a performer it would be very different. But I think the fact that puppetry was still working, still going, was really good for the puppetry community.
But still, definitely, she preferred the more abstract style in her own work.
Yeah, just more of the stage performance. So they kind of had to have bigger features and things so they could be seen from a distance, which is very different when you're working on TV because the cameras are a lot closer. So a lot of features on those kind of puppets had to be quite bold to be able to be seen right at the back.
Yeah. It's kind of almost a different art form, isn't it? Live puppetry versus filmed or recorded.
It's very different. It might be the same kind of concept, but the actual end result is very different, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely anybody who's done any acting or, even just watching television versus going to see a play, there's a totally different interaction between the performer and the audience when there's that intermediary in form of the camera.
Exactly.
It's an entirely different, and you wouldn't necessarily think that translates to puppetry, but it definitely does.
It does, yeah. So many different forms.
There's a strange effect of when your eye gets tricked by a puppet into thinking it's alive and it's in the room with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got quite a few scary puppets as well, and they do catch your eye.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you about, Stu. Is like sometimes people talk about puppetry and they're like, "Oh, it's creepy." What do you say to people when they're like, "Oh, that's creepy"?
I just show them the most creepy one I've got, and just freak them out a little bit.
So you lean into it. You enjoy that aspect of it.
A 5-foot clown is definitely scary.
Yeah. So you appreciate that and find that to be, something of value in puppetry, you think?
I do, yeah. I think you can put across your own kind of take on that kind of thing. Everyone's different. Everyone collects different things. Mm-hmm. Mine happens to be mostly puppets and vintage toys.
That's awesome. So tell me about your process for like compiling the biography. You had these records that you drew from. How did you go about like putting that into a narrative?
It was difficult. I've never written a book. I didn't know where to start. I didn't even Google it. I just started writing notes down. But there's just so much information. There's a lot of there's diaries, there's photographs, and she wrote on everything. So everything had a kind of a date to it, so I could work out a timeline. I think I started with the timeline. I think it was the best way for me to be able to process it. By putting it into years, you get to work through her life as a career. I wasn't sure even if it'd work as a book. It's just something to do during the first lockdown. But then it got bigger and bigger. And then I'd put some feelers out there and I'd get talking to people that knew Joy. I've visited a few of her friends and things. So you kind of get to know the person. I feel like I know her. So I felt like I could put her into that book.
That's really cool. Really cool. Why do you think Joy got into puppetry? What was it about puppetry that just, it became a central feature of her whole life, right? So how did that happen? What was it about it?
When she was a child, there was her and her sister Honor, who later became Peter Page, another professional puppetry performer. And it was during the Easter holidays one year, and the mum found a magazine, and it was how to make a marionette. So they spent the Easter holidays making it, and that is where it started. They enjoyed making the puppets, so they kept making them. They do performances at school, the local church, and then it just went from there. You know, it became what they did. She took the name of her great-grandfather, who was Samuel Laurey, a famous Drury Lane clown. So that's where the name Laurey came from. And then they just went forth and spread puppetry all around.
Yeah. Just bring joy and smiles wherever they go.
Actually, it's funny you should say that, because my book was actually originally entitled Bringing Joy.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
That's what I started with.
That book, of course, is available in the Gerry Anderson store if you want to pick it up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're very excited to have it there and to kind of explore this forgotten corner, really, of Gerry Anderson history. Sometimes it's a bit hazy, the early years. So it's great to be able to get a perspective into that time.
It's just nice to show that there was other people there with Gerry at the very beginning, and just kind of show those people what they were able to do. That's
really neat. Stu, is there anything else that I've forgotten that you want to talk about? Anything else from the process of the book or about Joy that you think people would want to know?
Most of it's going to be on the website, which is mrturnip.co.uk, where you can look through all the files, the pictures, the artwork. There's so much more that I couldn't put in my book. And there might well be a follow-up book at some point, but I'm working hard on the archive now, there's just so many files and folders to sort through. So I'm going to make it all available online. So over the next coming months, over the next year, there'll be more to look at all the time.
That's great. And so much of it is visual too, since that's a key part of puppetry is the visuals. So
it is. I've got quite a few of her puppets. I've still got some to restore. There's boxes of strange little things and legs and arms all over the place, but I'm sure I'll be able to do something with them as well.
That's fantastic. And if anywhere else online that people can find you? Instagram, Twitter?
There's Instagram, Twitter. Most of the work does go on Instagram because it's easy for people to use.
Yeah.
It's on Facebook. All the links are on my website as well, which it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah, and they'll be in the show notes on this podcast, so you'll be able to track them down. Stu, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today.
No, pleasure. It's great. I'm really pleased that we got to do it.
It's really great to have you.
Oh, thank you, Ben and Stu. Lovely stuff. It's so nice to have those old days recorded and remembered. Joy Laurey Archive can be found at mrturnip.co.uk. It sounds like I'm joking there, but no, it is Mr. Turnip, Mr. Turnip, mrturnip.co.uk, as well as all the links to Stu's social media accounts, or just check the show notes for more, and you can get the book, The Girl Who Pulled the Strings, at the Gerry Anderson store now.
Great. How exciting.
It was, you're right.
Yeah, very nice. I enjoyed that. Which one was short and which was sweet? Stu or Ben? Or interchangeable?
It depends on the day, but I suppose they're like Bill and Ben, but short and sweet, yeah.
Now, over on our YouTube channel, well, people have been very excited. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about real-life locations for Thunderbirds rescues. Tom Senior posted, the Cola Super Deep is something like 7 miles down. And Jamie's quite right, it is a borehole's width at the bottom, which got me thinking maybe that would fit the dimensions of the Thunderbirds puppets after all. It might be a bit of a squeeze to fit the camera crew and lighting down there, plus at 7 miles the strings would need to be a bit lengthy. Also, it's hellish warm down there, a cosy 180 degrees centigrade. Or is that Celsius? On the plus side, at least it wouldn't take long to brew a nice refreshing cup of tea at those temperatures, provided the kettle doesn't melt. I'm no expert, but I would suggest avoiding plastic cups. With the right British attitude, I'm sure it can be done. If we Brits can crash land on Mars, then I know that we can film an episode of Thunderbirds Underground.
Surely, it must be possible.
It could be done. Veli says, how about Angkor Wat? After all, it was good enough for Jerry Cornelius, which I think is a Michael Moorcock character. The Russians drilled the world's deepest hole, which they never filled in, way up in the frigid northeast, and it's larger than 8 centimetres in diameter. Ooh, okay. Argus says, what about the Marianas Trench, the world's deepest ocean trench? Yeah, that'd be exciting. Icy Fire says, I unironically love the 2004 movie, which spurred all this, but it might have been due to me being 6 then. Before seeing it, I was already a fan of the original series, as TV in New Zealand would run the show back then, and as a kid I loved and still love the adaptation. Renegade 2786 says 2 films come to mind that could have been episodes from Thunderbirds. Firstly, The Core, which I know of, which is when the Earth's core stops spinning, I think.
Ooh.
Secondly, a film called Daylight, which I'm not familiar with.
No, not familiar with that one, too.
No. And finally, Mythbuster 3808 says, my bedroom would be a good setting for a Thunderbirds episode. The mess in it is a disaster. Wouldn't make for a very exciting episode, though.
No, Bedroom of Disaster doesn't sound quite as...
Oh,
no.
that's a good title, but...
maybe not.
Can't quite see how that would pan out. But anyway, yes, do comment on our YouTube channel. Every week there's various things posted up there. Of course, the podcast, and the Fab Facts from the week. Lots of Chris Dale's little films and documentaries also for you to look at. It's a veritable wormhole, that's the trouble. If you start watching one, you'll be stuck there all day.
Yeah, so if you want a way to spend your entire weekend, just play one thing on Friday night on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, and we'll see you on Monday morning.
That's right, exactly.
Good luck with that. Richard James, the tattoo artist, has stood up.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Wiped off Chris's neatly shaved and now tattooed thigh. He's coming over to show it to us.
His thigh, right?
No, not his thigh. Sorry. It was his shin. It was his shin.
That's right.
It was his
shin.
Did he slip? I think he just must have shaved his thigh for fun. No, but look, can you... Oh, dear.
What?
Can you see what it says?
What does that say?
It says... It was Mercury, not Gemini.
Oh,
Chris.
Crying out loud,
We
I know.
get the point, Chris. You've got that tattooed on your shin forever now.
Blimey, it'll be a constant reminder.
So if he hoists up his trousers, you'll know what he'll be reminding you of. That mistake, which is now audibly indelible forever.
Great.
So
thank you for that.
It was the Mercury astronauts.
Yeah, not Gemini.
Not Gemini.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Chris. Well, now you go and rub some cream into your sore tattoo, and let's do the randomizer and see what random episode of a random series this brings us this week. Over to you, Chris Dale.
What's causing all this, eh? Yes, that shouldn't have... Oh, right, yes, that's the noise the randomizer makes when it picks an episode from a 2-part story. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, our destination is Moonbase Alpha for part 1 of The Bringers of Wonder. So, welcome back to Space 1999 Series 2 on the randomizer. That's the sound that most people associate with this show. But anyway, I am quite happy to get here today. This is, I believe, the 3rd time we have a 2-parter on the randomizer. Oh, I don't like that tiny little model of the eagle wiggling around there. Anyway, Commander Koenig is out in an eagle, and he's being a bit silly. And yes, as I said, I'm quite happy to see this one come up today, because this was my very first exposure to the series. I should stress, not via this 2-parter, but by the Destination Moonbase Alpha compilation movie, which I think my mum rented for me from the library on VHS.
Do you read?
Probably about 3 years before I saw the rest of the show on BBC. Yes, it was on the VHS tape, the blue, I think it was Polygram or ITC videotape with the picture of Tony and Alan on the front.
So much fun since I burned Grandma's wig.
Yeah, Koenig has completely flipped his lid. Everyone in Command Center is very worried about this. And I do like what they're doing to make it feel like he's banking and diving and soaring. There's a loose helmet rolling around on the floor, which I guess is just a stagehand picking it up and throwing it back into shot every so often. But it's a lovely touch that makes this feel so real. And yes, very excited to see this come up today. And in fact, I specifically did not
Too low. You'll hit one of the domes.
watch the
Get out of there. That's lethal. Oh, the joy.
expanded version of Destination Moonbase Alpha on the new Super Space Theatre Blu-ray set, because I knew that this was coming up, and I wanted to watch it with you guys. So I hope you appreciate the sacrifices that I make for you. I like that. Yeah, so Koenig is
Take over that eagle by remote.
acting very childish,
Unit to the launch area. Crashing at photo launch
and
area.
he's ended up near yet another nuclear waste disposal area that we've never mentioned before, and we'll never see again.
If he hits one of those domes, he could cause a nuclear explosion.
No, that will need a specific stimulation with atomic fuel.
But this is a Gerry Anderson show. It could happen.
He's going to crash.
Yeah, especially if he's going to crash.
Take a couple of nuclear physicists with you, just in case. Alec, Barbara?
Yeah, take those guys who've been hanging around Command Center for seemingly no reason, pretending that they're stars of the show, but they're just guest stars for this week.
Heads down! Big Daddy's coming in!
Oh, I think I saw a fishing line on the helmet there. Yes, it's stopped rolling now, and here we go. Oh, he's clipped a dome. He seems to be himself again now. Crashed right into a very big rock, and that's it, he's down. Is he alright? Well, everyone in the command center is very worried, despite the fact that this is, what, his 15th Eagle crash? You know, by this point, he must be doing it every other day, and yet the command center personnel are doing a very good job, looking upset and concerned. Even the extras are really giving it their all. Luckily, Koenig has got his helmet on, because it's a very serious crash. Lots of fire and such all over the place. Ooh. And that's a very good teaser. We come back to an even more exciting rescue sequence, although it does beg the question, and it's one of those questions that I think is up there with the one in The Last Sunset. Oh, why does a moon base have windows that open? And in that one you can say, there's a reason. Here, they've just opened the doors to space, the rescue team. I hoped they checked somehow to make sure that Koenig was still alive. And B, why did that not instantly put all these fires out? But, having said all that, it does make for a rather spectacular opening as these guys in fire suits kind of stumble around the place. It does, for once, feel like an Eagle crash is a serious, potentially fatal situation, rather than just, you know, something you can do 3 of before breakfast and walk away without any... Oh. Is this the shot where... Yeah, one of the guys putting out the fire, his spray hose, the nozzle comes off the end of the hose, or... I don't know. It might have been that shot and I might have missed it. Anyway.
112 days since leaving Earth orbit. Dr. Helena Russell recording.
Carter and Ehrlich, one of the nuclear waste guys, is pulling or taking Koenig to safety. Nice shot of a crashed Eagle. And there's a chap with a camera on the scene. This is Clive Kander of the Records Unit. Never mentioned before, will never be mentioned again. Well, after this two-parter.
I've got it all on film. What's the radiation count? Negative. All clear.
Well, that's clearly meant to be Bartlett, who said, negative, all clear. But he's played by Jeremy Young, so... yeah, Jeremy Young does not have that voice. But this, going back to the first time I saw this in the compilation, Destination Moonbase Alpha, not only does that compilation do a really good job of establishing the setup for the series, which, you know, does come into play later on in the story in more than one way, it also establishes the world of Alpha and these characters really well, I find. So, yeah, watching this as a kid, I had no trouble, really, keeping up with who was who and what was what. It was an instantly immersive world that I really wanted to spend more time in. And it didn't bother me that the introduction to the film had characters from the first season and main mission and all that. It just didn't twig with me that this might be the second series of a show. To be honest, I'm not even sure I realised that it was a show until several years later.
Feeds it back into the brain.
Anyway, Koenig is now installed in the medical centre.
Electronic.
And they're giving him a brain massage. Electronic.
It is still experimental. Then you don't know the side effects.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Is it worth the risk? If I don't take the risk.
Oh, and we used to have so much brain damage on this show. First season you couldn't move for brain damage. Now, we're very low on brain damage in Series 2, so we've got to try and get some of that going.
I don't know.
Plugging him into an experimental computer seems to potentially be a way to do the trick.
Come on, Maya.
There's lots of high-tech equipment and stuff bolted to his head. Various monitors and such. And what's going on in Command Center?
It's too far away to tell.
Maya?
Sensors pick up configuration of a spaceship.
Ooh. Range?
90,210,000 miles.
Heading?
Directly at us.
Well, that happens quite often around here. Nothing to get concerned about.
Center.
Helena, how long before I can talk to John?
15 minutes at the earliest. He's linked to that brain complex, Tony. I don't dare break the sequence.
I love the reaction on Tony's face there. It's like, oh yeah, that head injury and that highly experimental brain thingy that you told me about less than 5 minutes ago.
Spacecraft almost an hour to reach Alpha.
Tony, range 40 million miles.
It's impossible. That means it's exceeding the speed of light.
32 million miles.
Ooh. So this is an interesting development. Although I'm sure that there must have been other faster-than-light spaceships in 1999 before.
Radiation leak. The nuclear waste area is stable. Yeah, it's going to stay that way too for centuries.
I love the way Ehrlich and Bartlett just march into Command Center and start sitting around and leaning on things as if, yes, we are regular characters. You are interested in what we have to say, being fellow regulars yourselves.
That is a Super Swift.
No, it can't be.
It is.
But it is, I tell you.
Super Swift.
Super Swift never got off the drawing board.
No, not before we left Earth. Things have changed.
Physics hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is travelling faster than the speed of light.
Well, remember now, Nick Tate has been seen going faster than the speed of light, so... Oh, it's a very pretty effect, though.
Sure and hell looks like the drawings of Super Swift. It seems like human technology to me. It could be from Earth.
Well, thank you for your opinions.
Now, whatever that thing is out there, let's not get sentimental about it.
Well, I'm feeling a bit sentimental about it, actually, because I like that they've named it Super Swift in what I guess must be an acknowledgement of the Swift from Brian the Brain. Yeah, I like that it's implied this is a development of that craft. Again, I suppose the closest the second series really gets to those various doomed probe missions that you would hear about in the first series of the Ultra Probe and the Meta Probe and the several other probes.
Moonbase.
I want to say Uranus Probe, but I'm not sure if that's real or not. What was the one that Helena's husband went missing on? Anyway, who cares? Because the Super Swift has landed, despite all requests to the contrary.
Identify yourself. Repeat, identify.
Who could be on board?
Tony, they're trying to come through.
Stuart Damon, of the Champions and General Hospital fame.
It's Guido.
Oh, it's Guido as well.
Hiya, little brother.
Yes. Returning to the series.
It's my brother, Guido.
Stuart Damon, having played an Eagle pilot in the first series episode, Matter of Life and Death, which I think he gets a couple of lines and then gets zapped and spends the rest of the time in medical centre. So this is a much meatier role for him, and this is a nice scene as the occupants of the Super Swift make their way via travel tube to the reception area. We have a lot of Alphans there to greet them, and this is one thing that I, although it's mostly extras that we've seen before.
Guido.
Oh, that's it.
Guido.
So many people from Earth. They've finally come to bring them home. Yeah, I like, because this is a two-parter, and this is something I'll discuss a bit as we go through this one, the fact that because it's a two-parter, we have more money to spend, so we can actually have this really huge guest cast for this story.
Hey, darling.
That's it. Sandra's reunited with fiancé Peter. Helena's reunited with Dr. Shaw.
Now, I want a little respect from you. Oh, yeah, well, that cuts both ways.
Tony's reunited with his brother Guido. Alan is reunited with a friend. Ehrlich is reunited with a possible brother or...
I hate to have to tell you.
I don't know, he looks a bit like William Gaunt.
1,500 yards. How's your handicap?
Again, another reason why I instantly accepted back in the day that this had to be a main character, because I didn't know any different. Yeah, it's something I really like with this one, because we have more money to throw a two-part story. We're getting something here that looks and feels a bit more like the first season.
Tell me where I could find Dr. Ben Vincent.
Ah, yes, this is Ben Vincent's girlfriend.
Sister, right?
No.
Oh, his daughter?
Alan making a bit of a fool of himself here.
No, you're his grandmother.
No.
Oh, boy, I guess that only means you're going to tell me what I'm afraid you're going to tell me.
Yes.
I'm going to kick you in the nuts. Go away. Oh, well. Anyway, that was a nice bit of banter, I suppose.
Well done, sport. Wonderful.
Al Lampert, of course, as Alan's friend there, was in Star Wars.
Without your coaching, it was difficult.
Telling off Darth Vader near the beginning of the first film. And Ben's reunited with, this is Louisa.
Listen, I got a lot of stiff tendons all around here, you know.
And I do find, although it's there is a reason given later in the story as to why, I would have liked it had that door opened and in comes a friend of Victor Bergman and a friend of Paul Morrow, a friend of Uma, or someone who wasn't on the show anymore.
A little while. You've all naturally got thousands.
But doesn't Command Center look so full of people?
Things back on Earth. How are things back on Earth? The time it took us
To be honest, it does make the set look very cramped. I imagine it would have been quite difficult to shoot all this and actually get decent shots.
Now look, just give us a minute or two to get our breath back.
Well, keeping to herself on the sidelines.
Everything you want to know.
Maya,
everybody, thank you very much.
Not instantly looking to join in. And again, it's another one of these
Come on, I'll introduce you.
Moments that Catherine Schell and the show really does so well.
My brother, Guido.
Of Maya feeling like an alien, always feeling like an outsider among humans.
Older brother, and his smart brother, and his handsome brother. In every other way, he's a poor second.
And another thing I really like about this one is most of these characters, these people who've arrived on the Super Swift, the ones who are connected to our main characters, by and large, are really great characters and really well performed. And Stuart Damon is just top of the pile. You really believe him as Tony's brother.
Helena, this is Peter Rockwell.
Hello, how are you?
He's one of the Tomorrow people.
We were going to get married when my tour of duty on Alpha ended.
I've heard a lot about you.
Specifically, Helena, do you think it's all right if I forget all about him and go off and have a relationship with Paul?
You always did take that view.
You knew each other before?
Dr. Shaw was my tutor at medical college. He taught me everything there is to know about being a doctor.
It took him 20 seconds.
What do you do, Guido?
He's a cab driver.
I would also find it slightly funny, but also a bit poignant, if somebody came to Command Center, someone we know, and nobody was there for them, Where are Yasko's friends? Where's Yasko just at the door with tears in her eyes because nobody came to see her?
He hasn't got the faintest idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, it was Reinhardt who made the breakthrough at Cambridge. Cambridge, England.
Ooh.
Massachusetts. It means we can travel anywhere in the universe now. The journey back to Earth is just a bus ride in Earth time.
Yes.
We're just the scouting.
That was Bartlett having a bit of a...
Borders will be along soon, and then it's goodbye moon for everyone.
Oh. Yes, Bartlett having a bit of a disagreement there with... I can't remember what his name is. Oh, Professor Hunter, I think that character's name is. He doesn't have much to do in this.
How's Mama?
But this is good. And I want to believe that this happened.
You a mound of pasta the size of Vesuvius. And the sauce?
I know. Everything in it but holy water.
I believe these two as brothers instantly.
When the news broke that we'd blown out?
3 days of weeping, and then 2 weeks of phoning the White House to demand action.
And this is how I really could believe it all going down back on Earth.
They decided simply not to believe it. The scientists were talking out of their navel as usual. It was simply a matter of time.
And Papa?
He went quiet. And he got thin.
Yeah, sure.
I love the way Tony asks, how did she take it when the news broke? As if everyone on Earth wouldn't have felt the moon being blown out of orbit. But again, it's a nice nod to the origins of the series, which of course Tony wasn't around for. Now, Professor Hunter and Peter...
And where did you meet?
...are leaving Command Center as if in a trance.
You look a little lost. Can I help you?
And here's this lady...
Perhaps later.
...who's been wandering Command Center with a hungry look in her eye and a rather revealing, well...
She's been looking for John ever since she got here. She knew him before I did.
Does that give her territorial rights?
Well...
A friend for Koenig.
Hannah Morris. She's like the 5th Cavalry. Wherever she plants her flag is home.
And again, Diana Morris is another nice character, but unfortunately...
Helena, darling.
She's let down by being dubbed. This is not the actress Toby Robbins' voice. Toby Robbins actually did appear quite recently on The Protectors on the Randomiser.
It's been terrible here.
Oh, Ceremony for the Dead, which wasn't that long ago.
Awfully wearing.
But this is not her real voice. I suspect this is an actress named Nikki van der Zyl.
How long is it that you've been,
Who was, did a lot of voices for the Bond films. She was a lot of Bond girl voices.
Still, there's something to be said for a marooned society. It does limit men's choices.
And the women's opportunities.
I've always made my own opportunities.
There are some of us who still prefer them to come to us.
Hey, Clive, you're always with the camera, huh? Is there anything you don't get on tape?
This is for the
Hello, Clive. Well-established, loyal character and friend to everybody on the base.
Clive? Oh, what's that? You won't get to be in the picture.
And Clive's played by Nick Hobbs, who was a stuntman on lots of shows in this period. In fact, I think he was in Space Warp playing a security guard, and I'm sure he appears again in an episode after this. Oh, was it the Seance Spectre? I remember seeing him with a silly moustache on his face in order to disguise the fact that he'd been featured in this story so prominently. Yeah, I think Seance Spectre, he's wearing a moustache.
There are depths to him that I'm sure you never found out about.
Anyway, we'll later see him on fire.
Him at once. Where is he?
At the moment, he is linked to an Ellendorf quadrigraphic brain complex.
Oh, very wise of you, darling.
Oh, wow. I like that Diana is a friend that Helena knows as well, not just Koenig. Meanwhile, in Medical Centre, Koenig is, he's getting there, being treated on. And here's a medical technician, Sandstrom, just leaving Medical Centre. And I want to say that this guy playing Sandstrom, I have a feeling if this isn't his only role, his CV isn't that long, which is a shame because I really like his performance in this episode. He's now being taken over by Professor Hunter and Peter Rockwell, walking off in a trance. And he will spend the rest of the episode basically under the control of the aliens, being summoned to do various bits of dirty work for them here and there, and generally being beaten up for his trouble. So I kind of feel an instant sympathy for this guy because he's just a guy who works in the medical centre, and he's probably a nice guy, but he gets treated so badly throughout all of this. But what are they going to get him to do? Well, all this brain stuff looks a bit complicated. How about we just start switching all that off?
This is a medical monitor. Now, these are strategically placed so that from anywhere on Alpha we can keep a check on our patients.
No, they're not.
Rational setup.
It's a good idea to have a medical monitor in Command Center, but nobody has ever done this before or since.
A nice, cozy spot.
And here we get the first real visible sense of these people not quite being what they seem, as Koenig is writhing and squirming on the screen, and Ben is kind of aware of it, but also when Louisa looks at him, well, Jeffrey Kassoon is doing some very good boggle-eyed acting here, convinces him to turn the monitor off.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind, Ben. I have some very important questions that I want to put to Louisa, about the shape of things back on Earth, the configuration of the modern female.
Oh, Alan, are you still not done? He's just taken her out of the room, which of course means
I'm dying.
Ben can come out from under her spell.
Can't I see him?
Turn the monitor back on and...
Longing to see me.
I love this. I don't think this music was used anywhere else in the series. This is the Ben Vincent to the rescue theme. For a fairly intense and well choreographed fight between him and Sandstrom in the medical centre. Oh, that's it. Ben straight with a fist into Sandstrom's stomach, throwing him against the wall. And I get the sense from this fight. Firstly, it's nice to see Ben Vincent fighting to save Koenig. This is normally the sort of thing Tony or Alan would get to do. But I also get the sense, watching this fight, Ben Vincent does not fight fair. Granted, Sandstrom is under alien control, so he's not exactly playing fair either. But Ben is all about punching him in the stomach, and I think does he end up strangling him at the end? Still, good old Ben. Helena is in pursuit, by the way, but considering she was almost right on his heels when he left Command Center, it's taken her a bit of a while to get here. But yep, Ben has strangled Sandstrom to the floor.
Sandstrom was trying to kill Koenig.
Oh no. If only we had somebody on duty here at all times who could keep an eye on this sort of thing. I guess that could be Sandstrom, but...
He's all right. The cycle's completed. If it had happened earlier.
Oh, no. So Koenig's going to be all right. And here comes one of my favourite lines.
What happened?
Coming from Sandstrom here. Not so much lines, it's the way he says it.
Wait a minute,
tried to
Ben.
kill Koenig.
Ben, now just take it easy.
Kill Koenig! I have to kill Koenig!
Kill Koenig! I have to kill Koenig!
You destroy him!
All right.
You destroy
Here we go. Here we
I saw a boom mic in the shot there. So, they've knocked out Sandstrom. Yeah, I like this actor.
What about fashions? What everybody wears?
Oh, well, look at us. It's either a lot or nothing. A lot of tinfoil.
Tend to be a little lower. Skirts tend to be a little higher.
Oh, back to Maya.
Now, where do you think you're going?
I don't want to disturb everybody.
You couldn't disturb anybody. Now, come on.
And this is something the series touches on several times during the second series. Maya's feelings of being like an outsider, and even among the regular Alphans.
Hey, Greedo. What I want to know is what kind of propulsion you use to boost you past the speed of light.
It's a development of the ion rocket.
Yeah, she can never be 100% sure that she's going to be completely welcome because things like this might happen. Now, I let that line play about the development of the ion rocket.
Love, you're making...
Because when I first... When I saw this episode again on BBC Two, they showed 2 parts together as a compilation. For some reason, I did something that I did sometimes during this period. I would turn on the subtitles to... was it CFAX? Number 888. That won't mean anything to anybody outside of the UK, but I turned on the subtitles for this episode, and it was obvious that the guy doing the subtitles didn't quite understand what he was dealing with here. So instead of saying it's a development of the ion rocket, ION, the subtitles said it's a development of the iron rocket, IRON. And I suppose technically you could say, Lightspeed is a development of the iron rocket, but that's like saying it's a development of steam power. And there's one more misspelt caption that I can remember from that broadcast, and I will mention it later on.
What happened to the Commando and the Eagle?
See, this is what you don't get from other podcasts. Pointless remembrances of misspelt subtitles. If you're interested, I do remember one from an episode of Deep Space Nine, where Chief O'Brien says to a turbo lift, "Run about Pad C," and the subtitles came up with, "What about Pad C?" As if, that's a valid suggestion. Anyway, I'm now completely digressing, but it's okay because Koenig is, I think he's nearly back with us.
How do you feel?
You tell me.
You look great to me.
No.
You're fine.
Well, get this off your head and you'll be flying eagles, before the end of the day.
Wait a minute. Let's get this off of you. Come on.
It's a nice bit of headgear, that brain complex thing. It looks a bit like almost like a Cyberman bit of headgear.
Eagle 10.
Total.
Well, I really did a number on it.
John, what happened?
Everyone must have seen what happened. Rocket malfunction.
I love that Koenig assumes that everyone must have been watching his flight. I gather it was just meant to be a routine flight. He was monitoring some level of radiation or something.
Well, that's what it was, wasn't it?
He doesn't remember anything about...
The aviation crew found no evidence of rocket malfunction.
Flipping out and imagining himself as a little kid or something, whatever it was he was up to.
That means pilot error. That's terrific.
Oh, I don't need another pilot error notification on my record. I've only got 20, 25. What does it matter?
A rescue expedition has landed here on Alpha from Earth. They came in a super swift.
Super swift.
And I do like the fact that Helena is absolutely on board because she's got no reason not to be. And I really like Martin Landau's gradual acceptance of this. At first he thinks it's a joke.
Son's fiancé, Peter.
Son's fiancé.
And Professor Hunt.
And Jeffrey Kassoon is stuck in the middle, just sort of reacting to their reactions.
Diana Morris.
Diana Morris. Now, Helena, please don't even joke about that barracuda.
And a nice use of the music as well, because she's not joking.
Only you're not joking.
No, she really means it.
You really mean it?
She does.
You mean somehow something worked?
Yes.
You mean they got it licked? They're really here?
Yes.
How we can get back to Earth?
Yes.
Helena. Yes.
And I think this is why I look at this as a really good introduction to the series through Destination Moonbase Alpha, is their reactions to this news. It all feels so genuine, all of this. Even despite the fact that we've got characters that we've never seen before all over the place, the actors are treating it as real, and I believe these people and these personalities. I do wonder how well this would have gone down had they done it in the first season, because
we met at the jazz ballet group at MIT.
the focus in the second series was more on the characters and the relationships, the interplay. I feel that is one of the most successful elements of the season, so I don't know how this would have played in year one anyway. Koenig is now in command center, and we're now going to get some wonderful panicked acting from Martin Landau.
Stay with me. John?
Also, one of my favourite bits of music being matched to a particular scene. I love the way this music from Space Warp fits this scene. Because Koenig is not seeing the visitors from Earth, he's seeing aliens everywhere. Big, immobile, one-eyed blobs of green jelly.
Stay back, don't come near me.
Which he's apparently scared of.
What's the matter, John?
Lots of close-ups on his eyes, which are very effective. And I've got to say, I think I've covered this before. I was a bit of a wuss as a kid, still am.
What's the matter with you?
So when I read the back of the box, Koenig sees hideous, terrifying aliens, I was like, oh. And then when these things came on,
He's as erratic as he was up in the Eagle.
I've never really known what to make of these things. I think,
John, they're friends.
on the one hand, no, they're not scary. On the other hand,
Your friends are...
they are very imaginative. Quite disgusting. I mean, in HD, you see that green slime pouring down the, obviously, plastic eye of the monster.
Just calm down, okay? Listen.
So, yeah, they are
All right.
Listen to me!
detailed and not scary, at least to me. I think also, it's just they're so weird. It kind of works in their favour.
John! Stay behind me. Stay behind.
The fact that it's not an obvious guy in a costume, it's not that same monster costume that we've seen a million times before and since, or which in fact does turn up again in this story. These things are so out of the norm. So on the whole, I tend to give them the nod, because you're just not expecting something that weird. And I understand that a lot of people would find them a bit funny. Certainly, I'm sure they've been taken the mickey taken out of context on various TV shows and such. But for fans of the series, I don't know, what are your feelings on these monsters? Do you feel they work?
Stay clear, Tony!
Or, I'm going to say generally they work. Because the fact that they are immobile blobs, it's kind of established in dialogue later on that they don't expend a lot of physical energy, so, why would they be moving around? There's a million questions it brings up about, when we're seeing the alien blobs standing there doing nothing, someone else is actually seeing them, moving and being all active and such. I also like the idea that each of these aliens is pretending to be...
I've put him in restraint.
It's not just that the Alphans are perceiving them in this way. You could read into it that the alien blobs, one of them is, for instance, pretending to be Diana Morris and saying things and being all sort of
Do something.
provocative and catty.
Tony, his blood pressure's up. His adrenaline level is very high.
Anyway, we talked over it, but I'm sure you pieced it together anyway.
Yes, John.
Koenig had a bit of a freak out in Command Center.
Take it easy.
Had to be stunned.
What are they? What do they want?
John, you listen to me. Those are people out there from Earth. Now, you know some of them. They've come to take us home.
They're not people! Are you blind?
But here's something I'm not entirely sure works.
Can't you see what you've got out there?
Koenig being absolutely hysterical. I can understand that reaction in the first time he sees them. Oh, there it is. There's another one. Dr. Shaw, alien, is
Get out of here!
is in the building.
Get out of here!
Yeah.
Get out of here! Get out of here!
It's not very... Well, I was going to say it's not very in character for Koenig, but sometimes, he did completely flip out and run around the base in his pajamas shrieking.
The last man I would have expected to flip out.
So, but, even so, it's kind of...
To get out of here! I've got no...
He wouldn't react this psychotically. If it was that important, he would say, right, listen, this is what I'm seeing. I don't know what you're seeing, but this is what I see. Potential serious problem here. And I only mention it really because in the second half, that's exactly how he does behave. But because we're 15 minutes from the end of the episode, we can't have him get to that point yet. So he has to be hysterical. He has to be sedated. Anyway.
If you didn't let Ben Vincent out of your range, Koenig would be dead now.
Oh,
He interfered.
Alan.
He escaped the Eagle Crush.
Randy old Alan. So if it wasn't for Alan's randiness and Ben Vincent, the aliens would be well on their way to victory by now.
He is a strong leader.
I do like that it's, if it wasn't for that pesky Ben Vincent, of all people,
he's in position.
Our plans would have worked. Anyway, while the alien ladies continue to woo people in Command Center,
There is resistance.
Guido Vedesci and Dr. Shaw. That's right, Dr. Shaw. I wanted to say Professor Hunter. This is Dr. Shaw. Yes, they're keeping an eye on Clive Candor in the Records Centre. Yes, Clive Candor is reviewing photos that he took earlier, or photos and film, and he's feeling a bit of something going on at his temple. He's rubbing his face, while the two aliens watch. And I believe composer Derek Wadsworth once said this was his favourite piece of music that he composed for the series. He used to put this on and chase his children around the house pretending to be a monster, which is rather fun. He sounds like a fun dad to have had. And what's on this tape? Whoa! There's a video of some aliens. And Clive wasn't expecting that. Tries to leave. Can't get out the door. So just break the door control. Yes. They now seem to have Clive under their control. And he's going to go and release some oxygen from an oxygen cylinder, which of course he has in the Records Centre. But you can see from the way he's wafting it into his face, he believes that it's water of some kind. But who is this passing by who has noticed what's going on, noticing that Clive is flipping out? Well, it's regular extra Glenda Allen.
Maya, we've got trouble in the records lab.
And they've given her a line. It's not her voice. I think that's Nikki van der Zyl again. But it's nice that they gave an extra. And she, although she is regularly seen in Command Center and elsewhere on Alpha through the second series, she was also in the first series. Only about 3 or 4 episodes. But I like, though, that because the aliens are both concentrating on Candor, they couldn't do anything to stop Glenda Allen from getting to the compost. Because, first Ben Vincent, now Glenda Allen, they're being thwarted by... Well, they will be thwarted by Yasko any minute now. But, yeah. There's a full rescue team now outside to help get Candor out. He's trashing the place. What's Alan going to do to... Oh, he's going to use his laser.
The emergency oxygen supply, he's got it full on. He'll blow the whole place to pieces.
Oh, I see. Oh, I won't do that then.
To the air vent.
I love that suggestion from Alan. That would have been spectacularly misjudged from him. But, to be fair, Maya's not come up with a better plan. Getting in through the air vent. It's a good plan. Oh, here comes our other misspelt caption.
She's a metamorph.
She's a metamorph. Became, on the BBC transmission, she's a manamorph. M-A-N-N-A morph. I don't know. I don't even want to know what their thinking was there. Anyway, Maya's in, turned into a monster. Candace panicked, fallen back against the door, and opened it. Kaboom! And there he is, stumbling out on fire. Luckily, Maya in the monster costume is alright. And I love... Whoa, there it is! You can see Nick Tate bracing for the second blast from the records room. But even when it comes, it still looks very dangerous. And he in particular is very close to that second blast. Anyway, our guys are inside to put out the fire. And how's...
He's dead.
Oh, I was going to say, how's Clive? Well, he's dead, yes. Not to worry, Nick Hobbs will be back in the Seance Spectre, I think.
Tony, we're sorry about this tragedy you just had.
Oh, what are we going to do without Clive? Not Clive.
But we're rapidly getting out of the range of Earth. And if we're going to get you all home, we have to address ourselves to the problem.
There's a pilot ship that'll go back first. There'd be room for 3 people on it. If there's anyone you'd like to suggest...
Me? I would have sent Clive.
You'd get to it as soon as possible.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, okay.
So, everyone's gotten over the death of Clive very quickly. We've apparently printed out the names of everyone on Alpha, presumably minus Clive, and put them into a little box. Who are we going to draw out first? We've got 3 people who can go back to Earth. Let's see who we draw first. It's Stoner. But under alien control, Stoner reads...
Ehrlich.
Yay! Good old Ehrlich, who's been hanging around Command Center pretending to be one of the main cast. Played by Drew Henley, of course, from Star Wars and many other things. Number 2, McCarthy. Bartlett. And Sandra gives him a little hug. Aww. So that's the other nuclear waste guy. And number 3 is... All Day. Or...
Carter.
Yay.
You did it, Alan! Fantastic!
Hey, that's nice. So Carter and his chums... well, they're celebrating. They're hugging each other over a console, and the 3 actors can't quite reach each other over it, so one of them just knocked it. They bumped into it as they were celebrating there.
Do I seem rational to you?
Yes.
Fine. Now, will you believe that...
aliens!
I don't see what you see.
Oh.
What do you see?
Something hideous.
Mm-hmm.
Something ugly and horrendous and hostile and deadly.
Yes, lunatic factor rising.
To me, please listen to me.
We're now at sort of level 2, creeping up to 3.
Look, please let me get out of here! Don't you find it very strange that all the personnel on that rescue ship are people you know?
They're all volunteers, John. They specifically asked to come.
I do like that, that element of the explanation. It kind of has a built-in explanation. The aliens' plan, whatever Koenig comes up with here, can be countered instantly by Tony.
To see who'd go first.
Yes.
That Ehrlich, Bartlett, and Allen were the winners. The 3 men chosen are members of the radioactive monitoring team. Isn't that strange?
I mean, when have we ever had a radioactive monitoring team?
Names.
What's the matter with you? Can't you see you're being manipulated?
Although I can really accept when stuff like that comes along and it's mentioned for 1 episode, never mentioned again.
Blind!
Things like Sanderson's exploration teams and so on.
Hey, all systems a go here. What's the hold-up, Alpha?
Because it is a big base, there's lots of stuff going on. Why couldn't we have radioactive monitoring teams? Gives Alan something to do.
The pilot ship is ready for liftoff.
Tony, don't let them go. Helena, don't let them go. Don't let them go.
Oh, that's it. Switched him off. Had enough of that. Oh, so Koenig's out of it again. And Tony's given up and gone back to Command Center. The absolutely heaving Command Center. Again, all the aliens are present. We also have Glenda Allen again and Jenny Cresswell as the Super Swift deploys its tiddly tiny pilot ship. And everyone's very happy about it. And I do like the look of the Super Swift. I like that it does fit the lineage of the Eagle. I'm not mad about the look of the pilot ship. It's a bit diddy. I don't really understand the although this is an illusion that the aliens are creating, I don't quite understand what they are making the Alphans think the ship can do in terms of getting them back to Earth, because it doesn't seem to have much in the way of anything. Anyway, I love that shot though of all the aliens gathered around on the lunar surface, and Dr. Shaw has been to see Sandstrom, who is also tied down in another room in the medical center. I guess everyone just forgot about him, except the aliens. They are now going to use him again, for Sandstrom can get out of the straps and go and wreak more havoc.
There it is. I gotta tell the guys back on Alpha about this. Hey, you guys. It's beautiful. It's beautiful!
And although they're not members of the regular cast, I do really like Drew Henley and Jeremy Young in this. I find them really believable as not only as Alphans, but established members of Alpha's hierarchy. And here's Sandstrom. Oh! Introducing his fist to Tony's stomach. Tony is down, and this is a very cool move. I love that move from Catherine Schell, where she kicks him out of the way and then waves a little stick over her head, and suddenly she's a kendo warrior. But really, it's just another excuse for someone to beat Sandstrom into unconsciousness. I would love to know what happened to this guy after the events of this episode, because I don't think he's in part 2. And again, some just wonderful boggle-eyed acting from the guy who plays him. Although it does feel rather like, we need an action scene to end part 1. So, I mean, again, very well choreographed and rather intense. That's Sandstrom down. And here comes Tony. Ever alert Tony rising to the rescue.
Are you all right?
Oh, terrific. What the hell happened?
I hit him with my stick.
Again, it's a nice line. I don't quite know why she's holding a Perspex stick, nor how it transforms, but no time for that now, because Koenig is about to have a visit from Dr. Shaw, the alien. Oh, and there he is. And yeah, this is our cliffhanger for this episode, and I like, actually, how effective this is. It isn't immediately clear what they're trying to do, other than it's just, monster approaching Koenig, about to do something. But what I really like, what I find is very effective, is there's no sort of big ba-ba-ba-ba-ba cliffhanger music as such. We just get that noise. And it is a nice, horrible, gruesome, effective noise. Plus Koenig's squeals. It's just that horrible noise, and then sudden cut to silence with the words end of part 1. Because that's it for part 1 of The Bringers of Wonder. We will be back next week to find out how on earth Commander Koenig gets out of that one. Yes, my thoughts on that episode are, as I said, it was the first one I ever saw, so I've got a bit of a soft spot for it, even though that was on Destination. But I really like how more expansive and expensive this first episode feels. Lots of lovely character stuff for not only the regulars, but some of the guest characters as well. So a very strong first episode for Space 1999's only two-parter. We will see if they can keep up the quality next week.
Oh,
Space 1999, part 1, which means that next week is not so random because it'll be part 2.
Part 2.
So
that's right. That's true.
No randomness for you there. Sorry.
Yep.
So we'll look forward to
Space 1999.
Want even Series 2, do you really?
Oh, yeah. I love it all. Love it. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Fine.
What's wrong with Series 2?
Well, let's not open that can of worms.
All right.
Goodness me. Anyway, Richard James, you've got anything else to wrap up this podcast with before we disappear into the ether?
No, that's it for now. Just a plea for our lovely Podsterons to get in touch at podcast@gerryanderson.com or to post on our Facebook group or hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast on Twitter and tag me, Richard N. James. Him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson. And him over there, oh yes, yeah, I could see it, Chris. Yes, thanks for the reminder. That's Chris Dalek.
He'll be flashing that at you forevermore, I'm afraid.
Yes, Gemini, not Mercury. Mercury. Yes, well. I get it. Fine.
Anyway, we'll be back next week, Podsteron, with Pod 196. Don't forget to look out for tickets for our upcoming live recording up in Birmingham on Saturday the 16th of April.
Great.
Pod 200 is just around the corner, so do send us your audio and other submissions for consideration to podcast@gerryanderson.com. Leave us those ratings and reviews and all that good stuff. And we'll probably disappear now and leave you to your week. We hope you have a great one.
Yeah, see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Gemini, not Mercury. Gemini, not Mercury. No, Mercury, not Gemini.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
I think I might get one of those tattoos as well, you know.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
In the sort
Richard
of
James
way
makes
of
a mistake, shocker.
Yeah, that's the gift that keeps on giving in the same way as having a flatulent pet, essentially.
Oh, right.
You know.
Oh, okay.
It
Yes, I
keeps
haven't got one
going.
of those,
Well, I have.
Right.
He sat right behind me. His name's Eric.
Right.
And it smells like he's been eating sprouts. That's rather unpleasant. Anyway, so any other gaffes you're going to be making in the world of Anderson this week?
No. I think what I'm going to do from now on is when I write my scripts and I collate all these messages from people, and I'm going to double check everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit the internet and make sure I'm absolutely, check my sources.
Very sensible.
Yeah, and make sure I'm absolutely correct on everything I say.
Excellent. Well, that's good because, it might prevent Chris covering his entire body Memento style in tattoos.
Well, yes, it could happen because I do make quite a few mistakes.
Well, me too. He'll be getting the Brian Clemens wrote 4 episodes of The Protectors tattoo next.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay, well...
Gosh, where's he going to have that? It's quite a big tattoo, isn't it?
Maybe that's why he was shaving his thigh.
Right.
Anyway, on that hairless leg note,
yes.
let's go and go about our weeks.
I think we should.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.